Psychologists, what's the creepiest mental illness? Serious removed. There's this condition called prosopagnosia, or face blindness. It's where you can't recognize people's faces. It's caused by part of the brain being damaged or underdeveloped. It's kind of interesting as many sufferers can see people fine but only recognize them by things such as the way they walk. Sometimes it can be easier to recognize someone they know from behind than seeing their face. From a neuropsychological viewpoint, for me the scariest mental illness is that any part in your brain can exclusively be turned up, from as specific to not being able to perceive more than one object consciously, to repeating a single sound while speaking but still creating cohesive sentences in your mind, to not being able to see faces correctly but more as a Picasso painting. To me the creepiest part is that the brain often continues with working but without the part, which can be as light as being bad at math, to not being able to grasp the concept of quantities. Just chiming in to say that Oliver Sacks' The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat is a book full of interesting cases of brain injuries and coping mechanisms that the brain subsequently invents, including, indeed, a man who literally mistakes his wife for a hat. Alzheimer's is pretty freaky to me. Just erasing memories, not being able to recognize a child you've raised since he was born, and he's just a completely stranger to you one day, and the next you might remember, "Hi monsieur." What's scary is that could be your mother or father that you love dearly, and you're nobody to the monsieur. Personally, I think the paranoia and aggression that come with it are far more creepy. With that said, losing the memories and recognition is extremely sad. I've heard of two interesting ones. The first is that you don't recognize your own reflection, so whenever you do see your reflection, you look as if you're dead. The second is the inability to look in a certain direction, such as left. Your brain will basically refuse to look left, much like how you're not able to eat yourself. Your brain just won't let you. Asterisk. The inability to look in a certain direction, such as left. Asterisk. It's not even that your brain refuses to look left. You lose the entire concept of left. What left even means. Someone asking you what's on your left is like asking a blind person what they see. Except that your intelligence is intact and you know you should be able to understand what's on your left. So the mere question incites panic. There's a book called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat that I would recommend to anyone who finds the stuff in this thread fascinating. The above is one of the cases in it. I've had a migraine twice in my life where I lose the ability to interpret information coming from the left. For example, I was unable to read the first 3 letters of a car number plate, but I could read the following 3. Both times lasted about an hour. And yes, it is panic-inducing because you cannot rationally explain why you can't interpret the information. It is there. You see it, but your brain just says nope. No idea. I saw some sort of doc about mental issues and cases. A woman woke up one day and life was 100% erased from her brain. Words, memories, and even basic understanding a child would have. I think after a month of electrotherapy, she all of a sudden one day had it all back and shortly went back to life at home. The fear in her eyes when she first came in was like nothing I've seen. Edit. I went through 20 plus YouTube videos to find the link as I remember her face perfectly. This was like 10 years ago when I saw it. I'm still looking. There's 2 I've heard of that creep me out. Cotard delusion, which is believing you are a ghost and you just shut off from your friends and family and stop eating and eventually you just neglect yourself to death. Kagra delusion, where you believe that someone or multiple people close to you have been replaced by an imposter. Real creepy stuff. I worked with a client who self-harmed and then would inject her own piss and shit into the wounds. And that's enough of this thread for me. Somatic symptom disorder. The brain tricks the patient into thinking that there is pain all over the patient's body. It got so bad that one guy in Canada was requesting euthanasia. but the Canadian government didn't grant it to him because the law stated that those living with mental illness were excluded from legal euthanasia. This one got me. Everything else is super creepy, but this is so fucking sad. Cotard's syndrome. Cotard delusion is a rare condition marked by the false belief that you or your body parts are dead, dying, or don't exist. That's terrifying, yay. Acute borderline personality disorder. Obligatory. Not a psychologist, but I've worked in the mental health field for over a decade. Acute borderline is by far one of the most frightening. When people think psych ward, they picture ranting, head banging, a touch of violence, etc. And rightfully so. But the conditions associated with that dreadful, spooky, mental health image are actually just annoying, bizarre. A schizophrenic may walk up to you and say, "The frogs are Jesus." Quote, tell you they think the FBI is after them, or just be catatonic and rarely speak or move. Borderlines, though, in the anxiety and depression unit, will slice themselves to pieces to get the attention of someone they like, and switch from inconsolable crying to rage at the drop of a hat. They cannot be reasoned with. Any criticism is met with mental gymnastic mastery to justify their actions or feelings. I am sure my comment will draw many you or XYZ for thinking this type comments. There is no use discussing it with them. They cannot do wrong in their mind. Anyway, AMA. I've done emergency psychiatric intervention as an EMT, worked in several inpatient mental hospitals, and spent 8 years in the Army as a mental health specialist. I've got stories aplenty. Edit. I'll add some stories after work today. As someone who is diagnosed with BPD, being left untreated, it can be very scary. It really should be talked about a bit more. It's a very complicated mental illness that's more common than most people think. Apotemnophilia. Now read about that shit. Oh god, no. Medical definition of apotemnophilia *. An overwhelming or obsessive desire to have one or more healthy body parts, and especially a limb, removed by amputation. Bid correct? There's a documentary out there I saw where the guy wanted his leg amputated. But of course docs did not want to amputate a perfectly healthy limb. So what does he do? Sticks his legs in a bucket of dry ice. Can't remember. For hours. Docs try to save the leg but end up amputating it. Then he goes and get a prosthetic leg, but in the end he was happy. That was an episode of Nip Tuck. Season 3 Episode 7, Narcissistic Sociopathy. I don't remember the name of the illness, but the patients tried to amputate their own fully functional body parts. Apotemnophilia. For the sufferer, schizophrenia. Hands down. The delusions. The hallucinations. I remember a case in undergrad we were given where a man suffering from schizophrenia was hearing voices that had convinced him there were people waiting outside his house with the intent to kill him. And as a result he was effectively a shut-in who lived his life in constant abject terror. Antipsychotic medications are a wonderful invention, because I truly feel empathize with anyone suffering from schizophrenia. Had an uncle with schizophrenia. The guy was a little eccentric, but nothing that would indicate any sort of schizophrenia. I didn't even know he had schizophrenia until he died, and I overheard my dad talking about the meds he took. I guess that's the power of meds. Dissociation. Hallucinations after mental trauma. Dissociation is damned scary to me. We all do it in some form, like zoning out when driving. But being so traumatized, often early in life, that your mind felt the need to escape and being unable to control that, even after the situation is over, is some scary shit. And young children that are so desensitized by everything that happened to them, they can talk about it as if they're telling you what they had for breakfast this morning. Edit. Also, Munchausen by proxy. That's when a parent acts as if the child has all kinds of horrible diseases. This can be very traumatizing for the child and sometimes leads to invasive diagnostic procedures. or even the death of the child. The horrible and creepy thing is that it often goes undiscovered. Edit 2 thanks everyone for sharing. I hope it helps other people to feel less lonely with their problems and pain. I wish you lots of strength and happiness. It took me a long time to realize that talking about trauma was actually traumatic for most people to hear. It never dawned on me that a lot of people don't have those kinds of experiences and can't relate to them. That's not to say they don't experience trauma or anything, just that they aren't as flippant about sharing it. Mine, borderline personality disorder, doesn't have a psychiatric treatment, usually comorbid with other illnesses, paranoia, anxiety, hallucinations due to stress, depression, anger issues. You are bored? Your mind says, kill yourself. You feel empty? Kill yourself. The wind passed by? Kill yourself. I'm a psychologist. Just seeing the words kill yourself makes me want to kill myself. I have BPD and a depressive disorder. However, I think my BPD is a misdiagnosis and I believe I could be on the ASD spectrum. Can't have both for all those out there who are fine and dandy working on getting diagnosed. I am incredibly pro-suicide for myself. It doesn't mean I want to do it every second of every moment, but I firmly believe it is an option I'd be happy to choose if I really wanted. Right now I am content with my life, but thinking of suicide is always really calming for me. An old ex was diagnosed with that. Simply the most loving, awesome, funny, giving human who would then turn into the opposite within minutes. Usually when she was at her best I miss the nice person. I never want to see the violent madness that she could become. Always when things were going well she would just immediately become self-destructive and go about ruining all her relationships. I don't know if it was the right diagnosis. It was what she told me she was diagnosed with the last time we talked. I cried. She cried. Then she coldly told me it was my fault. Fuck whatever she had in her head. Visual agnosia is the ability to see perfectly fine but not understand or interpret anything you're seeing. Munchausen syndrome by proxy. What is meant by creepiest? Personally, I find severe cases of bipolar type 1 disorder, borderline personality disorder, and schizophrenia to be quite horrifying. But if I could only choose one, I would go with severe depression. But if I could only choose one, I would go with severe depression. Why's that? I'll give you my take on it. Severe depression can alter how someone views themselves and world so much that it's disturbing. For instance, I logically knew my parents and family loved me. I knew they didn't hate me. But no matter how much I understood that, my subconscious believed that everyone hated me and the world would be better off without me. I physically held myself to a desk to stop myself from chugging a bottle of pills. It's hard to describe how scary and weird that is to experience. No need to explain. I suffered severe depression for a long time myself. I'm glad you can see it as scary and weird because for me it was just an exaggerated normal. Hence my not understanding why someone would consider it creepiest. I hope you're in a much better place now. Depression sucks. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I'm no psychologist but one would have to think that dementia would be on the top of that list. Kagra delusion. A person holds a delusion that a friend, spouse, parent, or other close family member, or pet, has been replaced by an identical imposter. I actually experienced this recently in a psychotic episode. Went to bed and when I looked over at my wife she just seemed different. I tried to bargain for my life and my wife back with what I thought was some kind of evil creature that took on the form of my wife. I didn't notice anything different but I was 100% sure it wasn't my wife. So, I'm going to put in my own contribution because everyone in this thread seems to think neurological disorders and mental illnesses are the same thing. I'll put in here with my own disorder. Depersonalization, derealization disorder. Horrible to live with. It's basically feeling really detached from your body like it doesn't belong to you. and also from the world around you, so it seems very flat, fake, muted or two-dimensional, and like you're watching a movie or through a misty glass pane. May not sound that bad, but feeling like the world is fake and you're not really in it is horrific. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.